Hello everyone, and welcome to our virtual tour. Please get comfy. We will spend 1 hour together, get some drinks and some snacks, and enjoy. I'm Flavia Drăgan from Experience Romania. I'm a national tour guide, and I love to share the beauties of my country and local experiences. I think it's obvious that today, in the context of coronavirus pandemic, tourism industry and our activity are extremely affected. That's why, together with my colleagues from Alternative Tourism Association, we've outlined a project to offer virtual experiences. Through this project, we want to promote Romania, to stay in touch with people from all over the world, and of course, to support the tour guide community. Now, some of you may know Romania, some of you may not. Romania is an Eastern European country with many beautiful sites. It's like 7 countries in one, a blend of cultures and historical heritage. Maybe you've heard about the region of Transylvania or the character of Dracula, stunning castles like Bran or Peleș. We also have many Unesco monuments like painted churches, fortified churches, wooden churches, traditional countryside with delicious food and very nice people, and wild, impressive nature. We love to share all of this. What I think that makes Romania unique are the hidden gems, and these are less accessible places, unspoiled, untouched by the modern life, and this is the extra touch that we like to bring to our travelers. And that's why we chose to share with you the hidden gems of Romania. Now today, our challenge are isolation and the social distancing. However, in Romania, there are some people who have always lived in hard-to-reach mountain areas where isolation is a permanent way of life, and they also lack many comforts. And I would like to tell you today the story of some of these places. Now, let's have a look at the map and see exactly where are we going to hike today. So here we are. Here is Romania, like I said, in Eastern Europe, and these isolated hamlets are located in southwestern Romania. Now let's zoom in and go right in the middle of the national park. And there we go. This national park is called the Mogled-Cerna Valley. In the middle flows Cerna River, and here is also the main road. On one side of the valley, we have Mehedinți Mountains. On the other side of the valley, we have Cerna Mountains. Now, this yellow route covers 4 hamlets from the Cerna Mountains. This is 17 kilometers long, with a total elevation gain of 1,200 meters. So this is neither very easy nor very difficult. This is suitable for people who are comfortable walking. Of course, there are also shorter versions of this hike. It could be 1 4-hour loop or a 6-hour loop, but this is depending on people's preferences and the available time. Now, it may be hard to believe that today, most of these places, they don't have access by car or any other vehicle. And for centuries, they lived without electricity, running water, internet, land phone, doctors. Of course, they didn't get the electricity and the internet, but they also didn't get the financial crisis and the coronavirus. Living up here, they have to be self-sufficient. So they have to work really hard on their farmland and take care of the animals. Now, here, they also don't have shops or restaurants or guest houses. And for this, they would, if they need something that they cannot produce, they would have to hike for a couple of hours to the main road, then drive or hitchhike or take a bus to the closest town, which is 20 kilometers away, and it's called Băile Herculane. Baile Herculane is the oldest thermal resort in Romania. It's a very beautiful place, and many times after we finish a hike, we can soak in hot thermal springs. So here would be the closest place where these people can find a shop or a restaurant. Now let's take our car and drive through the valley to the place where we will leave the car behind and begin our hike. And here is actually a bus station, and it looks like that. It's a wooden bus station, very rustic. Now, these hamlets may look close to the main road, but they are actually not. Here would be where we have Unesco Church, would be our first hamlet. And from the main road to the church, it's a steep hike, and you need like 1.5 hours to get there. And this is the shortest way to get to this hamlet. There are other paths, but they are twice as long as this one, and no cars. You cannot go there by car. Of course, the visitors need a lot less, maybe 40 minutes to get up there, but they are used to it. After we leave the car behind, then we have to cross Cerna River on a slightly wobbly bridge. And here in this image, we can see actually a local having like an improvised backpack. Probably he was in Baile Herculane town, and now he's going back home. I will show you also how the path looks like. So it's quite steep, and it's like that all the way up to the church. But from place to place, the locals have installed benches and tables for rest, and also these wooden tablets with verses from the Bible and blessings for the travelers. This one is actually saying, "God bless you, traveler." I think this is very nice of them. Then in 20 minutes from the main road, we reach a very interesting part. These are called the wooden ladders, and here is how they look like. So we have 4 wooden ladders vertically attached on the limestone. And I will show you now also a video to have a better perspective of this place. So here they are. At a first glance, they might look scary, but they are actually very steady. So if you don't have a fear of heights, this shouldn't be a problem. These wooden ladders were installed by the locals 40 years ago for an easier access to their place. Before that, the locals would have to climb these rocks and then continue walking for another hour. Now imagine the oldest locals carrying heavy bags on these wooden ladders is not very easy. And I also have to remind you that 40 years ago, this place was not a national park. So these wooden ladders were installed by the locals for the locals. And here we can have different perspectives, and you can see how steep they are. And this is like the highlight of this hike. It's very hard to imagine that some people live behind these wooden ladders. After this, we continue walking through forest and meadows, and very soon we reach a very beautiful rest stop. It's a viewpoint, and it looks like this. And here at this place, we have a wooden benches and a wooden table, and you can have also photo sessions and Insta moments. I also call this place my office. Maybe some of you recognize this picture of mine. And the travelers are really having fun up here. It's a very nice place to stop. After this viewpoint, we continue going uphill for a short while, and finally we reach the church from the first hamlet. This hamlet is called Unesco, and this is their church. The church has a gorgeous setting, a very nice view. Here is also the cemetery. Well, I mentioned several times that we don't have roads here. So the locals built this tiny church in the 70s, and they had to carry all the construction materials up in the mountains using horses and their backs. It was a big effort, you can imagine that. And if you think maybe they could have used a helicopter, this happened in the 70s when we had communist times and they were not fans of churches. And even today, a helicopter would come here only for emergencies like uncontrolled fires and things like that. Now we have a priest here that comes from Băile Herculane town. But he comes only once a month for the Sunday service. And he said that in the past 10 years since he's serving at this church, he officiated only one marriage, and all the other events were funerals. Now, to have an idea of how many people live up here, actually today we have less and less people, but here we have now in the whole mountain region 100 houses, but today are inhabited only 30 of them. So in total, maybe we have 80 people living up here. And these villages, they are not like normal villages. And what I mean is that their houses are scattered everywhere. They are not on one street close to each other. So they are scattered all over the mountain. And your closest neighbor could be 1 kilometer away. So if this isn't social distancing, then I don't know what is. Even if we are up in the mountains, education is not neglected. And our next stop will be the school from Inalet's hamlet. And here you can see the path that the children would have to follow to get to their school in the mountains. And this is actually a primary school only for the first 4 grades. And if children want to continue their education, they would have to move to a different town. And you can imagine that most of them choose not to come back to these hamlets because it's a completely different life. And because of that also, unfortunately, they had to close down this school 3 years ago because there are no children left in these hamlets. And 5 years ago, when I was hiking here, I met these 3 children from this image. And these were actually the only 3 pupils that the school had at that moment. And I found them sitting outside in front of the school, and I asked them, what are you doing here? And they said, we are waiting for our teacher to come. She's 1 hour late. And I said, I was thinking, why was she 1 hour late? Their teacher didn't live up here in the mountains, so she lived in a different town and she had to take a bus or hitchhike, hike for a couple of hours, climb those ladders to reach these children. And even these children, they lived in different hamlets, and they would have to walk for 1 or 2 hours to get to school. And because they were alone, they also let us inside their classroom to see how it looks like. And here it is. This is not their teacher. This is actually a guest who was hiking with me that day. And she was teaching them a little bit of English. Now, in this classroom, you can see up here a light bulb and the computers. I told you they don't have here electricity from the public system, so people have to find their own resources for these facilities. Then 6 years ago, they didn't have any light in this classroom. The only light they had was the natural light coming through this window. And of course, they didn't have the computers as well. But an association from Romania decided to donate for these children a solar panel and these computers. And the national TV was there, and they made a reportage of this action. And you can see how everything was carried through those wooden ladders. So we can see here the ropes they made like a zip lining system. And here they are transporting the battery from a solar panel, and only the battery weighs 30 kilograms. So you can see what a big effort was everything. These are all volunteers, and they were helped by some locals as well. And even after these ladders, they had to walk on that steep path for another hour to get to school. But they made these children extremely happy. I think they were more happy for the light than for the computers, because they didn't know how to use them. Lately, more and more people try to help these people. For example, there is another association called the Friends of Nature Banat. And in the last couple of years, they organized an action called Shopping at Inelet. So they would invite, once a month, they would invite people to come up here, hikers and travelers, and they would meet at the school with locals, and the locals would sell their products like cheese, honey, jam. And this is just a little bit of help for these people. We are very aware that if we don't do anything, we will not find them anymore in a few years. So we are trying to do a little bit of everything. Even me, I'm trying to help them as much as I can. I'm promoting these places through my tours, but I also included a family in my tours. I told you up here there are no restaurants. So this family is preparing lunch for me and my guests. And this way they can get some money, and my guests get a very authentic experience. So it's a win-win-win situation. I told you that they don't have a land phone, but they also, until a few years ago, there was absolutely no cell phone service. In the last years, here were installed some cell phone towers, and you can get phone service, but only from place to place. It's not everywhere. And where this family lives, in their house, they don't have phone service. And how I communicate with them, I send a text message 1 week or 2 weeks before my arrival. Then they are going somewhere out higher in the mountains. They receive my text message and then they call me. And this is how we stay in touch. And I will show you now how their house looks like. It's right here. So it's a tiny house. For me, it's like a fairy tale house. It's very humble, but also very cute. And you can see here that they have also solar panels. It's and this is how they get a little bit of electricity. And our host is Mr. Luca. He's the man working around the clock. And this is Maria Luca's wife. They live here alone. They don't have any children. Now this is their terrace. They have many flowers. Maria just loves flowers and the vine to shade us. And this is the table where we are having our lunch. Because they have to be self-sufficient, they have all kinds of animals. These are a few details from their terrace. They have cows, they have chickens, sheep, pigs, dogs, cats, but of course a horse. Nobody has a car here because there's nothing to do with a car. There are no roads. So I could say that this is Luca's car. A horse is very important in this place. Now, usually until the table is set with food, I offer a tour of their house. They have 3 rooms, 1 kitchen and 1 bathroom. They can also accommodate people overnight, but you can imagine you have basic facilities. For example, water comes from a mountain spring. Heating, for heating they are using wooden stoves, electricity from the solar panels, but even with these they cannot have large consumers, so they cannot have a fridge. to keep their meat and cheese fresh. They have like a cellar and they keep their meat and cheese in brine. And here is another room where a family friend, his name is Dan Alexoia. I will tell you a little bit more about him later. He made like a little ethnographic museum. He's collecting all things from locals, from different villages, and he likes to preserve all customs and traditions. And he decorated this room with things from his personal collection. So these are religious icons, but in the same room we can find handmade traditional shirts. And these are more than 100 years old. And this is the third room. You can see that everything is very simple. They are not thinking about replacing the furniture or carpets. Everything is inherited from their parents and great-parents and kept with pride. Now, before every meal, this is how it starts. We have coffee, but we also have plum brandy. It's a distilled drink made by Luca himself. It's 100% natural and is very healthy. And we have this this is like a welcome drink or a digestive. We are having it before every meal. And here you can see some of the guests doing the right thing with the right bottle on the table. And then comes Luca's wife, Maria, with polenta. She's making here polenta. They don't grow wheat up there, but they are growing corn. And somewhere on a mountain river, they have water mills where they can grind their corn. And polenta is a good substitute for bread. And here is how a meal would look like. So we have the polenta, we have chicken soup, fresh cheese, fried cheese, freshly picked vegetables. As you can see, there's nothing fancy here. We eat exactly what the locals are eating, but everything is very fresh and organic. And while we are at the table, we discuss with Luca and Maria how is life up there. And they are telling us that it's a difficult life. You have to work around the clock. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday or holiday, you have to do it to survive. Also, they don't have doctors in the area. The closest hospital would be 50 kilometers away. But most of the people here, they don't get sick. And I think it's obvious why. They have very healthy lives. There is no pollution, no noise. The food is very fresh and organic. They do a lot of physical work. And most of the people would die in their 90s. If somebody would die at 70 years old, they would say, oh, he died very young. And I also don't have our stress, the stress from the modern world. I asked Luca what makes him upset or to worry up here, and he said, when my cow doesn't listen to me, then I get upset, or maybe when the wild boars come and destroy their crops. So you can see the difference. Also, when children were born in these hamlets, they didn't go to the hospital or maternity. They were given birth in the house. Even Luca was born in the house where he's living today. Now I would like also to tell you about their interaction with their visitors. This is a way of travel for them. But first one would be the family friend that I mentioned before that decorated their house and that traditional room. Here he is, he's Dan Alexoia. He came here first as a hiker, and then they became friends. He just fell in love with this place. I told you he likes to keep all the traditions and customs, and now during summer he's coming almost every weekend up here, and you can see him in this picture painting their house. and he's wearing a traditional men's shirt. And if you look at his shirt and the pattern from his shirt, he's using the same pattern to paint around the window. He's a very interesting person. I also met him, and also many of my travelers met him. And then come my travelers. And I invited today a couple of guests that visited Romania twice. Both of them visited these hamlets, and I would like to ask them about this experience through their eyes. And first we have Alan from Texas. Hello, Alan.
Hey there, how are you doing?
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. I would like to ask you, what was your first thought when you found these people living like that?
Well, I really wasn't sure it was going to live up to what it was going to be until we got up those ladders. And the ladders kind of punctuated the whole experience because, you were looking over a bush or a shrub and saying, well, there's going to be a road, there's going to be a truck, there's going to be, oh, no.
No.
This was very real. It was what you see is what you got. And they were delighted to see us, thanks to your invitation and introduction. And it was a great time. We were thrilled to be there.
Yeah, that's really funny. When I hike up there, I mean, we are already up there and all my guests are asking me, so nobody has a car here. So there is no road, no electricity, no wires. They still cannot believe it. So yeah, this is very interesting.
It was exciting.
I also have here a few photos of you holding a map and a coin, handing a coin. Can you tell us more about this?
Sure. Whatever country I go to, I make a map of that country. And this was the one of Romania. And what I do is I point out things, and with the guide, sometimes without the guide, we figure out where people live, and it just really helps to promote conversation where they've been. And then I flip it over and I say, okay, here's the US and here's Texas. I happen to live in Texas, and I boss it a little bit here so they can see it. Now, this is such a great treat because they can see the outside world. And ultimately, someone will say, well, I have a cousin who lives in Boston, or somebody who's traveled to the US, and I always ask them, have you been there? They're always excited to get that question. So here's Texas. And then on the back, I pull out an uncirculated Texas quarter, and I give everybody a quarter that I talk to. And on the back of that quarter, it is a map of the state of Texas, the Lone Star State. And I always say, a little piece of America, come visit us sometime. And it's such a great way to connect with people. Even if you don't speak the language, it just doesn't matter. They have a great time. I have a great time. It'd be hard to trade that for anything else.
Yes, I've seen this happening, and I can confirm that makes the whole thing more tangible. Because if you just say, oh, I come from Texas, this doesn't mean much for these people, especially for these people who have never traveled anywhere. So you made them travel to Texas.
Yeah, and then my traveling companion, who's in that one photo, Greg Acker, he's actually from Dallas. And when people there learned he was from Dallas, they know the old television show. Oh, you know Ja Ray? They know Sue Ellen. They know all of the characters, and ask them.
Yeah, Romanians are huge fans of this TV show. I told you how everybody would leave everything when an episode would start on TV. Even if they were at a wedding, they would leave the wedding to see the episode from
This was one of the first shows from the outside after the communist era, wasn't it?
Yes. Okay. That was right after the communism ended. So this was something special for us, and we cannot forget that.
Nice.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
We also have with us Leah from California, and I would like to talk to her a little bit. Hello, Leah, and welcome.
Hello, Flavia. Happy to be with you.
Leah also met the same people, and this visit, but in different trips, and this visit led to an interesting thread of events. Now, Leah, please tell us a few words about your visit. How did you see it?
Well, first, thank you, Flavia, for allowing us to have these wonderful experiences and these encounters.
My pleasure.
And it's your skill and your curiosity and your knowledge that brought us there. And you also brought me to some places that on my own I wouldn't have dreamed of or dared to go. The day before we climbed up to these hamlets on those ladders, you took us into a deep, dark, unlit cave. And so when I saw those ladders, I was a little intimidated, but I thought, well, Flavia got me into and out of that cave yesterday, so I should be able to climb these ladders. But excuse me, still, you look at those vertical ladders, and I have to say, seeing the photograph from above and looking down, I'm glad I didn't turn around to look back down. But those ladders contribute to the sense of dislocation and kind of disorientation that you maybe look for as a traveler. You want to be a little bit uncomfortable because then you're paying complete attention. You're using all your senses to make sure that you stay on those ladders and you make it to the top. and it's only fair that you should have to work like that to get to a place like those hamlets. And once you're there, you realize how lucky you are to be there because, as you mentioned, there are fewer and fewer children. Who knows how long those places will still be there. So you're attentive to everything, to the natural beauty. I'm from Northern California. We have a lot of natural beauty here, and Romania certainly rivals that. And so it's really a 360-degree experience to be on top of those mountains. And the ladders and you brought us to a place that we never imagined existed, to people whose everyday lives couldn't be more different than our own and who welcomed us very graciously. And as you said, that led to another series of encounters.
Right.
You had the photograph you showed, Dan, who is a friend of Luca's and comes frequently up to the hamlets and collects traditional objects and art and textiles. And so we were talking about him up at Luca's, and you mentioned that he didn't live far from where we were staying down in town. And I said I was interested in seeing his collection. So you arranged for us to go to his office and studio. And when we got there, there were reporters and a TV camera. And we were that night's news on Romanian television. And he showed us his collection, medical devices that Elena Ceausescu had used, yes. Magnificent woven textiles, musical instruments, recordings, and it was a cabinet of curiosities there. But I figured it's only fair. We had asked all those questions of Luca and Maria, and now we were being questioned by the reporters. So it was a fair exchange, and Dan was very welcoming and sent us off with a big bag of grapes from a farm in another mountain hamlet that he visits.
Yes, that was an unexpected moment. And I think it's very interesting how we all connected with these people, and we are from different parts of the world, and we all got connected in a remote mountain village on top of the mountain. Yes, and I was also for the first time at Dan's office, and I saw the collection, and I was very impressed. And it was fun also to show up on TV. Now, when we think about national parks, we expect, especially in Europe, we expect to see other people along the way. And Alan, please tell me how many people other than the locals we met on the way.
How about 0? We saw an occasional dog, horse, or goat, but nothing else.
And Leah, can you answer the same question, please? How many people did we meet on the way?
Likewise, no one.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. This is exactly my point. So this is really off the beaten path. And that's why you need a tour guide to go up there. Thank you, Alan and Leah. Now it's now it's time to say goodbye from Lucas Place and continue our beautiful walk. First, I would like to show you a different path that goes to the main road. And here it is. And usually the locals use this one for the horses. And here you can see a family with their horse and carrying their bags on their horse. They can load the horse with almost 100 kilograms. This is what they said. Don't think that this path is easier than the other one. It's also quite steep and twice as long as the first one with the ladders, but you cannot go with the horses on those wooden ladders. So this is an alternative to go up there. After this, we continue our hike. We reach the next hamlet, which is called Cracu Mare. And this is how the view looks like with Mehedinți Mountains on the other side of the valley. It's a very pretty place. And here is a local. What's interesting about this local, I will show you a close-up, are the shoes. So we could say that these are the Romanian traditional shoes. Normally they are made of leather, but these are made of rubber. And in most of the places in Romania, people are not wearing them on a daily basis. You can see them maybe with a traditional costume on a special occasion. But here in these mountains, most of the locals are wearing these, and they say these are the best mountain shoes. They have a good grip and they last for 2 or 3 years. It's very nice to see them. And here we reach a beautiful viewpoint. We are above a gorge. The name of the gorge is Priest Aegina. This is another place for photo sessions, and it looks like that. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. And very close to this viewpoint, we have this picnic table, which is right on the edge of the mountain. And you cannot hear anything except from birds and bees. And I could call this my secret office, for example. And here is Leah's husband, Rob, using my secret office to make an important business phone call. Also in this hamlet, we have a very interesting house, an entire household. And I will show you now how it looks like. So everything was built near this walking path on this side of the mountain. There's nothing on the left side, absolutely nothing. It's just steep downhill. And I also have a close-up of the house. So they built this house from wooden beams, but only 3 walls. The 4th wall is the mountain itself. And the locals say that this is more than 200 years old. And you can see here the other things that they build along the house. It's like an entire household. They also have animals there, but everything is along the walking path. And they had goats and cows and everything there. Now, I took these pictures when this house was inhabited. And the woman that used to live here, she passed away recently, last year, and at 98 years old. Now, I showed you before where is the closest cemetery. So they would have to carry the coffin from this old house, which is right here, to the cemetery, which is here. And this is 1.5 hours walk. It's pretty far away, and especially with the coffin. And at this funeral was Luca with his friend Dan. And Dan took a video of the funeral and how the coffin was dragged by the horse. And I would like to show you now just a few images, because I'm sure you have never seen something like that in the 21st century. So here comes the horse, and behind him is a sled, and attached to the sled is the coffin. And this is how they had to drag the coffin all the way to the cemetery. Now it's really difficult to imagine that something like this still happens today somewhere in Europe. But this is normality. There's no other way to do this. I think this is very interesting. All right, then we continue walking to the next hamlet, which is called Priest Aegina. And here I will show you their water mills. I told you before, they grow corn and they make cornmeal at the water mills on a little river from the forest. And so here they are grinding corn, but they also have power generators to produce a little bit of electricity. Also here is the first time where we can see horses and carts, because they have wider forest roads. And here is a local that is wearing a sponge mattress. And if you're looking at her shoes, these are the same shoes that I mentioned before at the other local. And this is how the village looks like. They also have a very beautiful setting, but here we have less houses, but they are a little bit closer to one another. And from Priest Aegina comes our last hamlet from this hike, which is called Dobraia. And here we can find the next school and church. And between Dobraia and Inelets, where is the other church and school, is a 4 hours walk. So it's quite far away. You can see how far the children, if they had, would have to walk to get to a school or a cemetery. And also here is the first place where we can see a car, but don't think they have proper roads. Only a few people have cars. We have only a dirt road, a steep dirt road. So you would need a 4-wheel drive to climb these steep dirt roads. Let's not forget that we are still on top of the mountains. So maybe life looks here just a little bit easier and more accessible, but trust me, it's not. Most of the people are happy only because they can use horses and carts. And from here begins our descent to the main road, which is also quite steep, and it takes 1.5 hours. That's going downhill. If you want to go uphill, it takes double, like 3 hours. So this was our hike for today, our virtual hike. I never thought I would say virtual hike, but here I am. I chose this story because sometimes we forget to be grateful for the things we have in our lives. I wanted you to see that there are some people who have a lot less and they are happy with a lot less. And I ask everybody living up there if they ever thought about moving to a more accessible place where life is easier. And even if they have a hard life, all of them said absolutely not. And they think that living here up in the mountains, they are closer to God. So thank you for joining me. I hope that I managed to share some of the charm of these places and people. For further virtual experiences, please like and follow our pages, Experience Romania and Alternative Tourism Association. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.